Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Hi, Foffit. You've reached Mel from Bella, the podcast that feels like a voice note from your best friend. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. My name is Bella and you are here for another week, which is very exciting. I haven't done that intro in ages. It just came out. It was like a reflex action. I don't know what happened then, but welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. If you're a new listener, then I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to the Inner Group Chat. And if you're a returning listener, then I'm so glad you came back because we have so much to catch up on. Today we've had 4 seasons in a day. 4 entire seasons. I've seen hail, rain, sunshine, wind. The only thing I haven't seen is snow, and I feel like snow and hail, they're kind of the same thing, and so it's been shocking considering that this day last week 18 degrees sunshine. I don't know what it's playing at, but it needs to stop. It needs to get its act together because I have done so much content being like, I'm so glad it's summer is here, we've made it through winter. I don't know if we have made it through winter because that isn't feeling very summery. That is feeling very, very wintry, and I am not a fan. Guys, I'm reading the Seven Sisters series right now, and I cannot explain how addicted to it that I'm staying up late to read it. Okay, I'm not scrolling. I'm literally turning pages on my Kindle. I'm looking at the time, it's like 11:20. I need to go to sleep. Okay, 5 more minutes and then I'll go to sleep. That's the level of addicted to this book series that I am. It's the first time that I feel like, well, maybe not the first time, but the books get better and better. The stories get better. They get more interesting. You can tell she kind of develops her writing style and how it's going to work and gets more confident because the books are just really good. I'm on book 3 now and it is miles better than book 1 in my opinion. I just think it's brilliant, and so would highly recommend reading them. I've just really enjoyed having a book that I'm really invested in the characters for, really invested in the storyline, really invested in just the lives that they're living, and that's kind of how it feels at the moment. I feel like I've got this separate parallel universe where I am one of the sisters, fully immersed in their life. And I also love how you're finding out more about the family. It's like, you know when you just follow one character intensely and then it changes the main character and it's like a bit annoying? This is different because like you follow that one character and you reach to one point in their life, and with every single character you're doing that exact same time zone. So you're like doing from one certain event to another certain event in every single one, and it's the same 2 events in the same period of time. And so you feel like you're not jumping around and like developing the storyline in someone else's head, which annoys me. I'll be honest, that does annoy me. Naming no names, but you know, A Court of Thorns and Roses. That really, really annoyed me. So I'm really enjoying that at the moment. I've also been into my cooking again. Feel like it's something that I come to and leave and come to and leave, but I've been prioritising. On a Sunday, I baked sweet potato brownies and I made 2 different curries, and it was just really nice. And I actually thought baking is an activity that I never do, but like, why? Because it's really fun and actually I really enjoy it, and I think I should try and prioritise this more. And so, don't know what I'm going to make this week, but sweet potato brownies were a big win. Other things that I've done this week that are fun, I've really hurt my ankle. No, not my ankle, my hip. Bit of a concern for the half marathon, can't lie. Bit of a concern. We're just going to let it heal. I'm going to go for like a gentle run tonight and see if that hurts or how that feels, because it kind of just feels like a bit of a strain if I move in a weird way. And yesterday I did a leg workout in the morning. Bad idea. Very, very bad idea. And so I'm really hoping that this kind of fixes it and that tomorrow it's fine and I'm fine, because I have a lot of training to do. I've been training so well for like 3 months, and for now to do this 10 weeks out is so annoying. It's kind of my fault though, because I did like a really far run way too fast. I just shouldn't have done that. That was my ego. That was literally so stupid. And so big regrets on that half, but it's fine. It's going to be fine. I believe it's going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. But this week's podcast episode, I wanted to talk about this weird cycle that I've noticed I get in. And I don't know what it is, and I don't know what it's linked to, but I just wanted to talk about it because I saw someone else talk about it and I thought, I'm not the only one. I am not the only one. And I'm trying to rack my brains now from who I read it, where I read it. I can't remember off the top of my head where I read it. But I found I get into this cycle where I start to really doubt myself and don't feel confident and don't feel very like strong in myself, and like kind of doubt everything that I'm doing and don't really want to show up. And then I lose this want to be like creative, and I stop and I just kind of like pull away from everything and like just feel a bit like, oh, I feel quite anxious. I don't really want to do that. I don't want to put myself out there. And it feels like a protection mechanism, and it feels like something I'm doing to look after myself. But when I'm through it and when I look back, I realise that pulling back was never the thing that was going to protect me or look after myself. That feeling of anxiety, that dealing with that feeling of overwhelm, actually facing it head on, pushing through, making sure I do the things that I really want to do and don't listen to that feeling that says I can't and says I'm not good enough. It's something that's taken me years to realise, but actually is the best coping mechanism for when you're feeling really anxious and when you're feeling overwhelmed. Because I have a predisposition for anxious feelings, okay? I am a chronic overthinker and a chronic worrier, and I wish I wasn't. I wish I was one of these cool, calm, collected people who was just very, very content in their own company. And the thing is, I do like my own company, and I am content in my own company, but wow, will I worry about every possible worst case scenario ever. I will literally think and convince myself the world is ending. People hate me. This is going to go terribly. What am I even doing? I am so harsh on myself and so quick to trip myself up on the way that I talk to myself and the way that I act around myself. And it's something that I know we spoke about a bit last week's episode, but it's something that I'm really trying to build on, because I've realised that these anxious feelings are normally the tipping point for when the cycle starts. If I have an anxious week, then I go into start thinking I'm not very good at anything. Then if some content underperforms, then I just start feeling really overwhelmed and anxious about the entire thing. Then I just don't want to create anymore and I get really locked into watching other people, and I just scroll on social media, and it's really bad. It's really, really bad. But I read this quote that says, "We laugh at the moth for thinking," this is not it word for word, but this is the gist, we laugh at the moth for thinking the light is the sun, and yet we look at our phones and think it's the world. And why is this so true? I can't stop thinking about it. All I think about is how when I'm feeling anxious, now going on my phone is kind of the thing that I go to do, because of it makes me ignore that anxious feeling, and it's not very healthy and it's not a good coping mechanism. So recently I've been trying to do moving my body when I feel anxious, and I don't know if it's helping, but I feel like it can't be hurting. And this is another thing I've been trialing of, you've got to stick at something long enough to see if it actually helps, and sometimes you've got to acknowledge how you're feeling, and you've just got to face it head on. And this is my new mindset for this next week, of just facing things head on, feeling the anxious feeling that I'm feeling that little bit of nervousness and feeling slightly on edge, and thinking, yeah, you know what, I am feeling like this. I am. There's no hiding it. I am feeling a little bit anxious at the moment. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I don't know what about. It's just there. That's the hardest thing to explain to people as well. When there's no real reason as to why I feel something, I'm just feeling it. And I think linked to ADHD, where there's a lot of change happening or potential change, I start to kind of feel that nervousness about the change coming earlier. And it feels so silly to say it out loud that why are you anxious? Because change is on the horizon. But I actually think that is why I'm anxious, because change is on the horizon. I'm a bit like, my stable, very nice routine life, what if it changes? But life does change and life does move on. And I think the quickest way to accept change and to have a more positive mindset about change is to face change head on and incorporate change into your life until change becomes a state of being that you are comfortable in. Because realistically, we can't always be uncomfortable when things are changing, because everything is always changing. The illusion that life is staying constant is only in our heads. Nothing is ever staying constant. If anything is something is always moving, because time is always moving forward. And so no 2 days are ever the exact same. But we give ourselves the illusion that it is, because it makes it feel more comfortable. And so in an attempt to try and combat my hatred, because the thing is, I don't hate change, but I find it quite daunting. I do find it quite daunting, and that's where my headspace has been at the moment. And so I've been trying to mix up my routine a bit more, so it feels less similar and less routine based, so that because I've been struggling, so it feels like I have good, strong friendships in my life, because that's important in mixing up routine and making sure you're meeting people and reaching out and being around people that you like. That's important in making sure that you reach out to the people around you and are pursuing those good friends. That is really important. I've been trying to mix up my routine so it's not too similar. I've been trying to make sure that I'm doing things that feel out of the plan, and I've been really trying to focus on reminding myself I'm 25 and it is important to live my life, and this routine makes me feel grounded, but the routine can't become a cage, okay? The routine cannot become a cage. For example, I'm going out on Friday night to an event. Instantly, when I found out it started at 11 p.m, I thought, I can't do that. But it's so late. It's literally so late. I won't go to bed probably till like 2 a.m. I'll feel shocking the next day. This is not what, this is already spinning out about all the worst case possible scenarios. And then I just thought, Bella, it's literally something fun. You know, you have no plans the next day. You're not going to really drink, so you'll just be tired. You know, you're allowed to go and do things, and doing things that are outside your routine are important. You can't just stick to this routine. The routine, although it can be providing like a good foundation, the routine is not everything. You do this routine. You are the person that's repeating these actions. You are the thing that is successful. You are the thing that is driving you. And so you've also allowed to have other experiences outside of the routine. The routine isn't this thing that you have to constantly repeat. Okay, the routine is something that provides you that stability, but that stability is just these series of actions. Like, you know, humans weren't meant to constantly live a routine. You were meant to be spontaneous. You were meant to have different things happening each day. You are meant to just live your life. The routine isn't this predisposition to having these same events happen every single time. And for some, like having those events happen in a certain order makes me feel grounded. But attaching too much worth and too much value to those things happening in a specific order isn't actually a good idea, because it makes us scared of change, even when change comes in a changing of your Friday night plans, or a changing of your routine the next morning, of a changing of how things fall together. I guess what I'm trying to say in all of this is that you are a human being, okay? You are a human being, and this routine that we have, and these plans that we make, and these, you know, things that we do to ground ourselves are important. And I'm not saying that, you know, having ADHD, the routine is really key into making sure that I feel like balanced and do the things that I'm meant to do and don't just forget about things that are going on in my life. But I also constantly have this flip narrative of like, you're human. You're human. You're not a calendar. You are not an agenda. You are not a timetable. You are not a checklist. You are a human whose sole point on this earth is just to live. Just to live your life, however you see fit to live your life. Whatever you want to do with your life, to live your life. And you are a human. And so if you don't manage to do everything on your routine, you're not a bad human. If you don't manage to do everything on your to-do list, you're not a bad human. If you just live a life that's like a bit spontaneous, that's not bad either. And I think social media and like productivity and all of these different, like I think that's made us think it is bad to live a life that's like spontaneous, to do things that are out of the ordinary, to live lives that are just like focused on the living rather than like 5 steps ahead. And by the way, this is not me being like, go on a night out. You need to do things that break up your routine. It's not about the night out. It's not about the drinking. It's not about any of those things. But I think the routine can also make us feel quite isolated. And because we do these set actions in a set way, that isolation doesn't feel like it has as much of an impact. But I actually think that isolation can be quite damaging. And I think we need to make sure that we are reaching out, we are doing plans, we are doing things that are out of the ordinary, and we're not overthinking it. I think this is my biggest thing that I need to work on, is like overthinking the tiniest thing. I'll go out and I'll be like, I'm hungover on a Saturday, my life is ruined. I had to do so many things and I haven't done any of them, and I'm not a productive person and I'm not going to achieve my goals. And it's just like this really silly, over-excessive, vicious snowballing of events, which actually aren't, you know, it's not true. It's not true. I really don't think that breaking a routine and doing things spontaneously is something you should be so scared of, and it's something I shouldn't be so scared of either. And I've had to work on it this last year, of when someone says a plan to me and it's not the exact plan in my head, being like, thinking about it before I give a response, because my gut reaction is saying, no, I don't want to do that. It's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. That's not very compromising. That is not creating a solution that works for both of you, and that's not working out something that is going to make sense for both of you. And it's about having compromise is important too. And so I have felt pretty anxious this week. And when I do feel anxious, I tend to stick to my routine and link into my routine. But to be honest, I've just wanted to do absolutely nothing and really, really like pull away from things. And this is where the routine is good, because it's forced me to do the things that I just really don't want to do, but I know ultimately are helping me and are good things to do. So I know the routine is good in that sense. But I also think when I'm feeling anxious, sometimes I don't want to do anything at all, and realizing that a life that is filled with spontaneity, is it spontaneity or spontaneity? Like being human and doing things that are outside of what you usually do is such a key role in being human. Like I actually think it's really important. I think it's important to make those like silly memories and to do things that you just want to do, and sometimes like live a bit more intuitively. That's the only issue with the routine. When the routine stops being intuitive to what you actually want to do in life, that's when it becomes a bit, like, is that really aligned then? Because if you're intuitively working towards goals that you really, really want and the routine fits in with that, then that sounds okay. But if the routine is just pushing you towards the next day when the day isn't actually something you're aspiring for, that feels like it doesn't really work. And so our goal for the next week is to live a bit more intuitively. To not focus so much on the routine. Do the things you really want to do the things you feel like there should be no shoulds, you know. I want us both to live a bit more like, do you know what, I just want to do that and I'm just going to do that. Because I think intuitively we do, well, most of us anyway, tend to make the right calls, you know. We listen to our, like, how we actually feel. We listen to our gut reaction on something. We listen as to something's going to make me feel better. Because when I feel anxious, I actually do want to go for a walk. I do. Intuitively, if I think down deep, I think surface level I don't, because I don't want to do anything. And then I'm like, come on, Bella, go outside. Even if it's just standing on my balcony for 2 minutes and taking a deep breath, I do want to do that. And so although this routine I've been feeling I just haven't wanted to do, I've just been pulling away a bit from everything, I am trying to live a bit more intuitively this next week. I'll let you know how it goes. I'll feedback. I'll let you know what I get up to. Maybe it'll be an absolute chaotic week and I won't do anything I'm meant to do. But maybe it'll actually turn out pretty great, and I actually think it could probably be the latter. But instead of the question part of this week's podcast, I've now started an advice column on my Substack, because I felt like the questions, they were always quite like detailed, and I wanted to give you guys more ability to like actually write in and provide context and to really spend time and thought on those individual questions. And so I've created the advice column, and if you want to send in the first episode of it, the first edition of it dropped last Sunday. It was about cheating. If you're interested in reading it, make sure you read my Substack, follow my Substack. The first episode is on there. And if you want to send in your own thing for the advice column, your own submission, make sure you send it to dearbellaadvice@gmail.com, and all of the things that you send in are read. I can't send one-to-one emails to you all because that is just not feasible. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a professional. These things are for reflection and discussion. And I think it's important when we're building a community to kind of open up to each other. And so that's why I've built it. But please send your questions, your situations, things that are keeping you up at night into that mailbox, and I can't wait to read them. But yeah, no question on this part of the podcast right now. But thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you know someone who's struggling with routine, struggling with being spontaneous, with leaning into who they actually want to be, then make sure you send this episode to them. And I can't wait to catch up with you next week. I love you. Bye. Mwah.